show. It is this Effen show. It is this Effen show.
Welcome to This Effen Show, a podcast by two trans men of a certain age.
We're back. I'm your Uncle
We
Joe.
are.
That guy.
I'm Spencer, trans dad.
Good morning, good afternoon, good day. How are you?
Happy month of wrath,
July.
July.
Wrath following Pride. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is July in Northern California, and it's about 305 degrees outside. So I'm glad we're inside. Glad we're talking. I am spending a little bit more time on the interwebs recently, and I kind of want to talk to you about a conversation that feels not new. It's been around a while for us, specific to trans men, and I think there was I'm just going to stop introing it and get to it. There was a narrative that was really, really loud a few years ago, and I think it's still around. I don't know if it's as loud, but it's still there, and it's this declaration from trans men to potential partners that says, if you would date or fuck me, but not a cis guy, then you don't really see me as a man. Right? Like if you're into me, but not a cis dude, then you don't really think that I'm a real dude. And I remember this from years ago, and it never sat right with me for two reasons. And I want to pick your brain on this for two reasons. Yeah. One, I don't get to tell somebody else how they feel.
Right.
Even if it's about me, right? Like, right. I have no say in how you feel.
This is how you're going to feel about me, damn it.
Yeah. Two, and really the nugget of it is this, the idea behind it is that this is the standard of masculinity and maleness and dudehood, cis het guy, right? That's the standard. That's the only way to be it. And so if you don't see me as exactly as him, well, then you don't see me as a man. And my thought is, I'm not like him.
Right.
I'm queer.
Yeah.
It's not just one body part that separates us. We're not exactly the same.
I mean, it's a whole package of lived experience that is different from cis men.
Yeah.
Regardless of what their sexual orientation happens to be.
Yeah. And I saw it a lot with trans men who are interested in women, usually cis women, right? They're like, you have to view me just as you would a cis man, or you don't really see me and you don't believe me. Yeah. All this. But then they even did it to cis gay men, right? If you're a trans man who partnered with men, right? If like, if you want to hook up with me but not a cis dude, then you're just fetishizing me as trans, right? So it was all of this built-in defensiveness about like, you don't really think I'm a man. But like, they're not the same. There's not one standard of masculinity. There's not one way to be a dude.
No, there isn't. And part of it that's interesting for me is just also the somewhat divergent narratives that go with whether you're dating women versus dating men.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to find that women who are into trans dudes come at it from a standpoint of, oh, you're a man, you're just better than cis het dudes, and I don't have to worry about all the baggage that I get with cis het dudes who were raised with a certain set of ideas about how men and women are supposed to interact with each other, how men are supposed to be, how cut off they are from their emotions, how their worldview tends to be based in a default to violence and a lack of consideration of how the world works for anybody that's not a cishet male, particularly for white cishet men. But But I do think that there's an element of fetishization
$5 words. There you go.
on the part of some cis gay men when it comes to trans men.
Mm-hmm.
When they're not interested in the trans man as a complete human being, but in a, oh, I've never fucked a woman and you've got a V, so therefore I'm going to try that out. And so
Yeah.
it's not about anything other than a particular body part that they want the trans dude to bottom for in a sexual way. And at that point, that really is icky. Right?
I guess gives me some self-reflection, because there's been those times in my life where I don't care. I'm going to let my slut flag fly for a second. Times in my life where I don't care who you are. I don't care what your name is. I don't care anything about you. You've got a body that I want to connect with right now. Cis dude. Right? Is
Yeah.
that different? Is that the same? Did I fetishize a cis dude?
I don't know that that's about fetishizing them. I think that's more about like, I want to scratch an itch. And
Yeah.
you're convenient.
Yeah.
You know, to some extent, I think some of that is also just a function of gay male culture, which is very used to hookups. Right? So if you're a trans guy and you're into women, it's very hard to play that hookup game. Right? Because it feels like there has to be a lot more negotiation and conversation that happens before any kind of sexual contact is happening. So it seems like a lot of the trans guys that I know that have a fair amount of hookup sex are either having it with one another or with cis gay guys.
And all of this that we've talked about, including what we led with, right? Like, I keep coming back to that. It's all about that identity's relationship to power, right?
Right.
Like, if I hook up with a trans dude, our power, we don't have to. I know you feel safe with me, and I feel safe with you, and I'm talking
Right.
broadly.
Yeah.
Yes. Right? If I
Yeah.
hook up with a cis dude, there's still an element of like, you're a dude and I'm a dude, and we're cool, right? And
Right.
I get why female bodied people, women people of all varieties would need an extra layer of like, are you cool? Right? Like,
Right.
am I safe? Will
Right.
you let me be authentic in this experience, or do you just see me as playing a role? I get it, right? And I think that comes back to why, if you hook up with me and not cis dudes, I'm down with that, because broadly, and I get that there is an awakening happening in cis het dudedom, and I'm very happy to see it, right?
Right.
Generally, they misunderstand the relationship to power, right? If your power comes at the expense of somebody else, that's not power, that's
Right.
abuse.
Right.
Right? If you feel powerful because someone else doesn't, unconsensually, that's abusive. And if
Right.
you don't want to step into that energy, person, yeah, step into it with me. I don't want to. I want that safety. I want that,
Right.
consent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so hookups for dudes probably do come easier. One, we don't have purity shame that female people
Right.
do. And two, true or not, we have a sort of an inherent built-in belief that we're safe.
Yeah.
I'm theorizing on that one. These are
Yeah.
general, right?
I mean, I think that may be true for guys that look like you and me. I think for guys that are newer in transition and who maybe are not presenting in a way that is conventionally thought of as masculine, that can be a little bit more fraught.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
You know,
Yeah.
And then for me, like I'm always looking at the layers of also being a leather person and like the power dynamics that happen within leather sex also playing a role. So for trans guys who are into leather and who may be, uh, you know, bottoms both sexually and in terms of SM dynamics, there can be an element of coercion and or lack of actual consent involved in cis men being like, well, but I want to have sex with your front hole. I don't care about your back end. I can get that anywhere, right? Whereas for the trans guy, it may be, yeah, but I only want ass play. Like front
Yeah.
hole is off limits for you,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so, I mean, I know a number of guys who have been violated because the cis gay guy that's topping ignores the clear boundary.
Yeah. That's abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, everything comes with a caveat, right? But I do think sort of broad stroke wise, and I'll just go ahead and say it and, feel free to write in with all of your disagreements, but I do think trans men are better than cis men.
I think that there is and
In
again,
general. I'm not saying
yeah,
every single one of us.
no, and just like saying that not every cis het guy is a Chad, not every trans man is an angel, right?
Right.
And I use that word in a trans
That
man
was choice on your part.
yeah, I thought I would.
Clever.
Yeah, right,
Clever.
right. Like
Yes.
we're not we're not. Oh, we're perfect. We figured out. But there
No, no,
is
no.
an awareness that I think collectively all of us are working toward. Like the queer tent is getting bigger, which
Right.
I love, right?
Yeah.
Because queerness is saying you're patriarchal. It's not working anymore, man. You're
Right. It doesn't
you're
work.
you're killing yourselves. You're killing your men. You're killing your women. Like you're killing your souls. And queer people, and that's also what I love that we've gone from this, especially in the '90s, where we were like, we're just like you, we're just like you, we're just like you, as a way to justify that we deserve
Right.
equity, right? I'm not
Yeah.
just like you. I'm not. If you
No.
have a problem with that, that's gross and that's on you, right?
Right.
You view diversity with repulsion, and I view it with curiosity.
Yeah.
Right?
And I've said this many times that being queer is it's not just about my sexual orientation and or my gender identity, right? Or my
Right.
gender expression. It's my politics, it's my culture, it's my sense of humor, it's my worldview, which
It's what I love. It's how I
is built
Evan.
by my otherness and an otherness that shares certain characteristics with other people who also experience that otherness, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's like, I mean, you remember when Will and Grace was on TV, and
Mhm.
probably some of our younger viewers don't even have any idea what that show was, or even how groundbreaking it was, despite the fact that it played into so many tropes and terrible stereotypes and was in many ways like the most desexualized gay show ever.
That was the first thing I think of when people say Will and Grace. I'm like, yes, super important, hilarious, authentic in so many ways. These were some impotent gay dudes, man. These were like
Right?
these were
um but I look back at that show and I remember like discussing with cishet people an episode, the next day or whatever. The shit that they laughed at was not the stuff that we laughed at.
really. What was the
Like
difference?
the actual gay jokes went right over their heads. They had no idea. the little subtle things that were written in.
Yeah. The code.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is, I was so my boy Charlie, uh God love him. He's so young. Um and we were talking about something with him the other day, some movie or something, and he had no idea what we were talking about because he's never seen it. Um and we were like, "Oh my goodness, we have to work on your gay education."
Your
So
cultural competence.
um so one of the things that we were talking about was the need to see the celluloid closet.
Veto. Yeah.
Um Much like I think everybody should watch Disclosure on Netflix
Okay.
so that you can get a better sense of how queerness plays out in coded ways in entertainment,
Yeah.
right? So,
Hmm.
if you think about anything that you've ever watched, Lord knows any Disney animated movie you've ever watched is so queer coded
Hmm. Hmm.
that you know exactly probably who the animators were that
Yeah.
or the writers were, um, with regard to any particular character,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be a line where you're like,
That's a little
oh, a
funny.
gay person wrote that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Which reminds me a little bit of like, do you know Chapel Roan? Have you heard of her?
Mm-mm. The
So
name's
she's a singer who is a cis woman. She's queer, who her entire aesthetic is based in drag. So
oh,
her
okay.
stage persona is very much a drag queen. And she was on some late night talk show, Jimmy Kimmel, or I think it was Jimmy Kimmel. Um, and she's talking to him. He has no idea what she's talking about. So, like, he said, "Oh, well, so I heard this quote about you that, I'm your artist's favorite artist." And
Oh
she's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
well, yeah, but that's a direct, steal from Sasha Colby, who's like, I'm your drag queen's favorite drag queen.
yeah.
And he's looking at her like she's speaking some foreign language.
He's like,
And
sure.
somebody in the audience goes, woo. And she's like, oh, good, there's gays here. Um,
Yeah.
but it's that kind of thing where it's like, if you don't know what those cultural reference points are, right,
Yeah.
then it's a really quick way for me to discern whether or not you're queer or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've talked to you before about the fact that I really want to write this book, and I'm not going to tell everybody what this book is about because I'm going to write this damn book.
Yeah.
But when you're watching shows and people are commenting in ways that are clearly gay reference points, queer cultural reference points, if you're sitting there watching something with a cishet person and they look at you like they have no clue what just happened, that is the difference between queer culture and the lack of culture that exists in cishet world.
Yeah. And again, it any awareness of queer history at all understands that we love the arts, right? Like we love the art. And
Right.
I don't just mean like I'm not just like Mary going to Broadway, right? Like we love our artists, we love our singers, we love our drag, we love our performers, we love expression,
Visual
we love
artists,
yes,
painters,
the
illustrators,
patriarchy
whatever.
hates art and is cutting funding to art and is stripping the art and is trying to legislate art, right? And that's not a coincidence, right? Like that's and it's not just for the queer community, it's for any marginalized community. This is what the patriarchy does. It just exists only to control. It's
Right.
running out of things to control because we're getting tired of it, right? So it's
Right.
limiting art, which is sad because I don't know what they're producing that is beautiful, right? And again, I'm
Well,
very
they're but
always
they're
like
not.
1,000%. I'm willing to be wrong. in my life. I have no problem being wrong, but I don't see what patriarchal heterosexual culture is producing that is beautiful.
Because they don't.
Yeah.
If you don't have queer people, you don't have art and culture.
Yeah.
You simply don't.
If you don't have anyone marginalized away from your point of view, you don't have it, right? It's
Who's
just a
designing
vacuum.
your clothes? Who's
Making your music, right?
yeah.
It just exists in a vacuum, and
Pick any part of the world that exists that is beautiful and designed for aesthetic purposes. If you don't have queer people involved, what do you get?
yeah,
Soviet bunker style buildings?
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, and
super harsh block architecture? Or things that, are just an ode to a penis?
yeah, I, I I love that the queer tent is getting bigger, right?
Yeah,
And what is queer is expanding,
right,
right? It's growing, right? I know very heterosexual people who are like, I want to queer heteronormative relationships. Like, I want to queer hetero relationships because y'all have figured out something, right? Y'all
right.
have figured out something. So how do we apply that to our love?
And I also fundamentally have a problem with folks who don't actually have any queer experience claiming queer as an identity when they don't have any skin in the game.
And that's my only caveat is you are invited in this tent. Absolutely. More love. I'm never going to say no to love.
Yeah,
More love, right?
right,
But just as we all need to be aware of the privilege that we have and the power that comes with it, right? If you are mostly hetero and you're wanting to queer your love, please be aware that your privilege to slip in and out of the communities is a superpower. So how are you going to use it for good? That's all I ask.
right.
You have a
And
superpower.
my whole thing is you don't get to slip in and out. Once you decide you're in, you're in.
Well, I mean passing, right? Like I pass as a cis
Well,
dude when
sure.
I'm out in the world. That's
But
what I'm talking about, right?
here's the thing that I say about passing as a trans man. You perceive me to be cis. I'm not projecting that onto you. You're making that perception. My
Yeah,
safety only lasts as long as you perceive that.
absolutely.
The minute
Absolutely.
that mask slips for whatever reason, my safety erodes.
Yeah. And that's where the work is, right? That's what I'm talking about
Right,
when we say, I'm just like you, I'm just like you, I'm just like you. No, I'm not. I'm not like you. I don't want to be like you.
right,
That doesn't mean that I should have to, and this is really pie in the sky, and I'm going to say a duh right here, right? My authenticity is non negotiable.
right,
My safety seems to be for you, right? Like,
right,
that's where the problem with it comes in is
right,
I'm still me. I don't want to be like you. Why do I have to feel unsafe around you now?
right.
That's the shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, kind of apropos to all of this, yesterday a friend of mine posed a question on Facebook, which was um, trans men who identify as lesbians, and was that an okay thing or not an okay? Like, what were people's thoughts about that? So people had some pretty nuanced ideas about that. One of them
Wait, hold on.
being, yeah,
Hold on. I want to make sure I understand.
okay,
Whoever he is, he's a trans man who says, I am a lesbian
right,
right now. Not I was, but I am right now.
right.
Okay.
So, but one of the things that people brought up were, A, does this person identify as a man, or are they transmasculine in some way that doesn't buy into a binary,
Okay.
right? So anyway, my response was basically like, I really don't care how anybody else identifies themselves. Like, you get to identify your sexuality however you want. Is that going to limit who your potential partner base is? Sure. Because you got to find somebody who's going to support your self-identification, right? And have that fit within their own narrative. And I said, for me, like, I identify as a queer trans man in part because I have a breadth of people that I'm attracted to. And it's also my politics and my worldview and my culture. And I said, but, when it comes to the kinds of women that I'm attracted to, and my primary romantic and sexual attractions are to women, I'm very specific in that I am attracted to queer identified femmes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So and then, being kinky on top of that, and me being a top looking for body, like, there's a lot of variables involved, right? Um,
Yeah.
but like, the places where I would go to find the women that would be responsive to me are often deemed women's spaces.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the spaces that are sort of women predominant but men are welcome are the spaces that I tend to frequent the most often. Right?
Okay.
Like, I could go to events or to things that had a lot of cis women there, cis het women, or even trans het women.
Mm-hmm.
But unless they have the other variables in place, queer, femme, and femme is not the same as feminine for any of you out there who are unclear on the concept. Femme is its
Mm-hmm.
own identity within queer culture.
Mm-hmm.
And then kinky
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like, the pool of potential partners is seemingly quite small
Yeah. Yeah.
because they
Okay.
also have to be interested in being with a man, albeit a man who is trans.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are those women out there who prefer trans men over
Yeah.
cis men,
I'm married to one. Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Uh, and why people take offense at that? Like, why would you be like, I don't understand the whole trans men who are offended by the notion that there are people that are attracted specifically to us.
I My only guess is it's that insecurity around like, can I think of myself authentic as an authentically male, right? And man to me, man, I'm starting to examine my relationship to the word man because am I a man? Legally, yes, right? But like man to me is really cis. So it's like I'm a dude, I'm male, I'm masculine. I am a trans, I'm a man, right? Like it's something's not working out. I'm working it out. I don't know what it is, right? But I'm still authentically masculine. You can't deny that. Look at me,
Right.
right? Like you can't who
Right.
would look at me and be like, I don't believe you're masculine, right? Well, maybe if I did that.
I'll
But
tell
you
you
know,
what, the people on Instagram and TikTok that respond to my videos who are like,
yeah.
you're always just going to be a woman. And it's like, oh my God, seriously, dude?
Yeah.
Come
Yeah.
say that to me in person when you're not sitting there behind your computer.
Yeah. And
Because you're
again,
going to
like
look like a fucking fool.
you don't want you Chad, if you don't think that my manness is the same as yours, I don't give a fuck. But you,
I'm
how can
sorry
you
that
look at
you
me?
feel so insecure about your manliness. I'm perfectly
Yeah,
fine with who I am.
you cannot look at me and say that's not a masculine person. No
Right.
matter what hormones are in my body, I am masculine, right?
Right.
So my only guess is if you're insecure that someone would date you and not a cis dude, is the insecure is based in, do I feel like I have a legitimate claim to my masculinity? And brother, I'm telling you, you do. You
Yeah.
do. It doesn't matter who's
However
interested in
you
you.
express it.
Yeah.
There's no one way to be. And, somehow, and I can't even figure out like what exactly is the measurement that people are using? Like what are we looking at? Chads? Are we looking at Billy Bobs? Are we looking at like who is this measure,
Standard.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say it again, Chad, Billy Bob, whoever is broken and is
Yeah.
sad and is
Yeah.
cut off from half of his energy and is confused and is so ashamed of his fear that it's palpable that you can feel it.
Yeah.
Why are we holding that up as like, that's what I want to be?
Yeah.
Like,
Right?
he's so broken. Our cis brothers are so heartbroken.
Yeah.
Why do I want to be him?
Exactly. And living where I live, there's a fair amount of the insecure dude bros who are MAGA who have like the giant flags flying off the back of their pickup truck. It's like their whole personality is wrapped up in being MAGA.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
it's
MAGA
like,
is,
are people attracted to that? I don't. Every woman I know is like, that's my first question of somebody that like I meet or that, swipes me on Tinder is like, who are you voting for? Oh, yeah, no. Goodbye.
yeah. I guess Karen loves Chad, I guess, or Billy Bob, right? Like they must because they're making all their kids, all their Braden, Cadens, and Haydens, right? Like so
Yeah,
they must be power. Go for it, right? Like fall in love with whoever you fall in love with. Again, you don't get to be abusive in your quest for power, and MAGA is
right.
abusive, right? It's horrible, but the anger that they live in, the seething that everything is a threat that has to be squashed, that everything must be controlled, that I must be above something, right? Like that's just your heart's got to be so tired, Chad. You've got to be so tired.
Well, and you look at all of these pieces of legislation that they're passing, all this terrible SCOTUS decisions last week,
Yeah, yeah.
um, which are, basically designed to implement Project 2025.
I know, I
Um,
know, I know. It's
and
it.
now that they've basically given presidential immunity, I've got a whole laundry list of things that I'd like Biden to do in the next couple of months.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
it
but you look at what is the underlying feeling behind all of these bullshit pieces of legislation that they're passing because they're not doing anything substantive for anybody.
no.
I mean, DeSantis just vetoed a law that would have provided reporting of E. coli in beach water to prevent people from getting sick if they go swimming in the ocean that's full of fecal matter. But he vetoed that.
Because it gives them a sense of control. I'm telling you, patriarchy only exists if it has
Exactly.
something to control. That's it. That's all it all it knows is conquest and control. That's all it
Yeah.
knows. And it's
Meanwhile, he's got lifts in his cowboy boots because he's insecure about his height.
yeah. He that and again, it's not power, Ron. It's not power, it's
No.
abuse. you elevating yourself as you push someone down, it's not power, it's abuse.
No. And you
And
look at his poor kids who look absolutely miserable in any picture you ever see of them because they've been forced into this. They end up looking a little bit like the daughters of sister wives in polygamous Mormon
yeah,
sects, right? Like he dresses them alike. They're different ages, but they're wearing exactly the same. Like,
yes,
let them have their own personalities for God's
I
sakes.
know.
But no, we
No,
can't
no,
have that because, well,
don't have
they're female, so they're my property. So
have
I'll
to
do what I
control.
want with them.
Yeah, it's just about what can I conquest, what can I conquer, what can I control. And the beautiful moment right now is that more people are waking up. You can call it woke MAGA, and I know that pisses you off, but it's the truth. We're waking up to be like, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore.
Right.
We're killing ourselves.
Right.
It's out of control. It's
It
out of hand.
doesn't help anybody.
We're just suffering. We're just creating suffering. And enough people are saying this isn't working anymore. And it is dire right now, and it is scary. And I don't know what's going to happen in 2025, but just keep your eyes on the big picture that
Yeah.
all of this is just a dying animal lashing out. I've said it before, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So
it really does feel a lot like sort of the last grasps,
yes,
trying to
yes, and
cling to something familiar. And, and we've talked about it before that, part of what's scary for cishet folks about queers in general is that we're more self-examined than they are. And that's frightening.
yeah, yeah, we reject a lot of their ideology because we're like, that's not cool.
Right.
And so our freedom really pisses you off.
Yeah.
Really pisses them off, not
Yeah.
you, them. Yeah.
So I have to tell you a quick little story about
Yeah.
like how I know the kids are all right, but
Yeah.
also how I think probably as dire as things feel right now, why I still have hope that we're going to be okay come November.
Mm-hmm.
So I had promised my daughter I would take her out to brunch this past weekend. So
Mm-hmm.
we ended up going to IHOP because we were too late to go to any of the good places. So we went to IHOP here in town, and um, she was engrossed in her phone doing whatever she was doing. So I was just listening to other people's conversations. So in one booth, kind of over slightly behind us to my right, there were a couple of guys, clearly cishet white guys, having a conversation about the debate. And one guy, clearly a Trumper. The other guy, however, was very forcefully working hard to convince his buddy across the table from him why it was important to vote for Biden. And the way that he was going about it was interesting to me. Like he was saying, yeah, I mean, I know both of them didn't do great in the debate. Like he seemed tired, whatever. What I'm concerned about is who has the nuclear codes.
The Trump dude said this?
No, the one who was trying to
Like,
convince the Trump dude to not vote for Trump. He's like,
okay.
I don't care. He's like, this was the part that I thought was interesting. He's like, I don't care about, most of the other issues. Like, I don't really care about abortion. I don't care about whatever. And I could kind of tell that he was saying that just as a backdoor in to talk to the other dude.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, like, why is that the first thing that you're bringing up?
Yeah. Social issues, as they call
You
them.
know,
Yeah.
but he kept over and over and over and over again saying, yeah, but Trump's a liar and he's scary and he does not deserve to have that kind of power. So that was heartening to me that here in, Bubble Land where I live, um, these two dudes at IHOP are having a pretty nuanced, in some ways, conversation about the future of the country, right?
Yeah.
So, and then about halfway through our meal, these two kids come in. They're probably, I don't know, 13, 14 years old. They're clearly on a date on a Sunday afternoon. And they're like pooling their money to figure out how much money they have and what they can order with the money that they have. And then after a little while, they're having this conversation about dating. So they start talking about dating and relationships. And the one is like, well, I mean, I know that your mom is kind of against us dating, but like, whatever. And they're talking about gender identity and gender expression, and then they're talking about polyamory, and I'm like, you know what? The kids are okay.
Yeah.
The kids
Yes,
are
they
all
are.
right.
Yeah. Right.
Like, however these kids identify,
They're,
they understand more about sexuality, relationships, and the dynamics of that than their cishet parents do.
yes. Yes. The kids have open minds and open hearts and curiosity.
Yeah.
That's
So,
hope.
I came home later and I was telling my partner, I'm like, the kids are all right. Like, here we
Yeah.
are where we live in this little town, and here I am at IHOP, and these kids are
Yeah.
having this conversation.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
we're okay.
We're all right. That is a beautiful story to wrap this whole conversation up with, right? Like
Yeah.
two old dudes talking about it. The kids are like probably 20 miles ahead of us already. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Exactly.
love it. Okay.
Exactly. All
Well,
right. Yeah,
enjoy your
enjoy your
July.
day. And hey, if you're watching this effing show, make sure that you subscribe either on Spotify or YouTube. Please drop your comments. Let us know if there's anything you'd like us to cover, or if there are guests you'd like us to have on. Make sure you're also following us on Instagram at This Effing Show. And we'll be back in a couple weeks.
Always good to see you, sir. You have a
Good
beautiful
to see
mind. You
you.
have a beautiful face. You have a beautiful beard. I love
Yep.
you.
Stay cool
And
in the air conditioning and then go have a skinny dip.
I'm going to go skinny dip. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Hey, thank you for listening to this episode of This Effin' Show. Do us a favor and give us a follow on Instagram and YouTube at This Effin' Show.
And you can email your comments or questions to us at thiseffinshow@gmail.com.
See you next time.